You're listening to the D.O.P.E Experience with Romby Bryant, Javiar Collins, and Sal Romby. Our conversations revolve around people looking to evolve and transform into the next phase of their lives. We're here to help them navigate this journey by developing one's perspective every day. Welcome back to the D.O.P.E Experience. I'm Sal Romby with my esteemed colleagues Javiar Collins and Romby Bryant. We've got another fun show today. We've got our friend, Mr. Seth McColley, on the line. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm great. How you guys doing?
Did y'all catch the hook 'em horn sign? That started early already.
That's right.
Sorry.
It's like we haven't talked in forever. It's been like, 20 minutes since we last talked? It's been forever, man.
21 minutes.
Yeah. Exactly. I can't remember how Romby and Javiar met you. I'm trying to figure out how we put each other together.
Who had met me?
Yeah.
It was last fall at I think it was your first or second in transformation networking.
That's right.
At the Star.
At the Star. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, Seth has more than 20 years of diverse human resource experience in a ton of different industries, engineering, wireless telecommunications, restaurant and hospitality, software, retail, and most recently construction. He's the head of HR for Kirby-Smith Machinery out of Romby here, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Seth is a true Renaissance HR professional. So we're glad to have him on the show. He and I have known each other for maybe 2 years?
About right, yeah, about 2 years.
And despite being a proud graduate of a fine institution, UT in Austin, he's grown to be a great friend and an industry confidant who I cherish quite a bit, and we're happy to have him on the show. You and I first met over barbecue, right? Like, was it 1050? I don't think
that is correct.
I don't think you've been to 1050 in Richardson. It's a great Texas barbecue, Romby. Good Texas barbecue.
That is right. Yeah.
It was late 2018, and we talked about the power of networking. And I got my current role through a couple of industry friends who introduced me to my current boss. And you also got the lead to your current role through a mutual friend of ours, a fine gentleman, Mr. David Alexander.
That's correct. Yeah.
During this time of in transformation, and here on the show, Romby, Javiar, and Eric call it in transformation in lieu of in transition, you established a very unique personal brand. And you did it through LinkedIn videos, you did it through vlogs, and eventually you created a podcast, 6 Degrees or Less. And this term, you came up with the term relationshipping, and I steal it a lot. I do credit you, so I just know that I do credit you when I use it. But how did you come up with that term, and what are the principles behind that?
Oh boy, how did I come up with it? Well, I guess how it started. It was kind of about that time we met, so late 2018. I was in transformation myself, and I vividly remember. I think it was early December. I was living in uptown Dallas, and I was driving to Frisco for a doctor's appointment, and I had this thought that kept going through my head because I was in transformation, so I was doing a lot of networking, traditional networking, and I've always just been good at networking. It just kind of came easy for me. I was just kind of struggling with why do people have such a hard time with this? I don't get it. It's really not. It's not that difficult. And from downtown to Frisco, I came up with this idea. I thought, I've been hearing all this stuff about LinkedIn video, and I'm gonna throw something out there. And so I parked the car, and I think in 2 takes, I did a LinkedIn video. I think it's about 2 minutes, and it was all about I called it the N-word, networking. And so I was being a little bit punchy with it, and I said, hey, I don't understand why some people really struggle with this. And I within a matter of days, I think it had several thousand views. I was like, you got to be kidding me! Like, this is so elementary. This is so simple. So I did another one. I think it was probably like my second or third is when I kind of came up with this idea of relationshiping. I thought, networking, the term networking kind of gets a bad rap, right? I think it's thrown around a lot. It's misused, and people kind of have this connotation of like, well, I got to go to this place for 5 to 7. I don't know. Like this cards, I got to. It just felt so like I don't really want to. Like I have to do it. I don't really want to do it. And so kind of thought, well, really, it's really more about relationships. I thought, well, why not just call it relationshiping? It's kind of a silly sounding thing, but I was like, yeah, why not? So that was it. And I just started using that hashtag when I did my videos and when I did my posts. And then, it's a couple months went by. That's when I had this idea of putting together a podcast, and I did it all around networking or relationship-ing. And so I call it 6 degrees or less, kind of based on that theory about, we're all connected by 6 degrees or less of separation. And I thought I'll just focus on people within my network and just have one-on-one conversations. I said, I don't know if that's going to be interesting to people or not, but who cares? It's my podcast and it's going to be interesting to me. And I'm going to do it no matter what. And so I just did it. And that's it. That's how I came up with it.
That is, that's some very great feedback, man. I remember actually to what Sal was saying earlier on how you and I actually first met was in one of Sal's first or second in transformation workshop. And that I remember vividly, that was the story that you shared with the group about your journey, about how you, I didn't know you started filming like right in the car. That's pretty awesome. But I remember
that kind of became my trademark. It was funny because a couple of times I've done videos not in the car and people have been like, hey, how come you're not in the car? And I'm like, whoa. I didn't know the car was a thing here. So
yeah, no, but the fact that you had the idea and the idea made sense to you on the way from Dallas to Frisco and you pulled over and just jumped right in.
Just did it. No.
I think that level of courageousness is really important and it's really rewarding when we play it through and play it out. So, but that was the story of your journey and how I think you had don't get me to lying, but at least a dozen episodes under your belt at that time.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. You weren't just beginning, but you weren't like a seasoned veteran just yet.
Yeah.
And you were just starting to get the wind in your sails, and it was about relationshiping. So that for me is just an awesome story, right? On many levels, on your own personal testimony, what got you from one state transforming into another, and how you're able to sort of package that up and share it with others. So in light with that, with regards to relationshiping, what are some steps, or what are some ways, some high points, some key elements that you could share with us and our listeners about the formula of approaching relationshiping, right? You call it essentially networking, which I totally agree with your position, how it could be work and it could be unenjoyable, but I like how you reframe it. And that reframing gives it a much more positive outlook, for me at least. So yeah, just some formula that you could share that we could sort of connect with and utilize.
Yeah. Real quick before I go to that, I did want to say, I think something you mentioned there that I wanted to piggyback on was, that it really did happen like that. Literally, I had this thought, and I thought I'm just going to put it on video, and I think I did two tries, and I just put it out there, and I think sometimes where people get hung up or stuck is they overthink it. What if it doesn't look right? What are people going to say? What if I said this? Well, did I say this right? And I think at some point in time, you just got to say, I don't care. I don't care. This is my voice. It's my opinion, and I'm just going to put it out there. And this is me. And you just got to be vulnerable, and you just got to be real, and got to be raw, and you got to be you. And I think in years past, the old me, maybe I would have overthought it, and I would have, well, it doesn't look right. The lighting wasn't right. This wasn't right, or I didn't say this right, and I just would have just overanalyzed it, overcritiqued it. And I think that's where sometimes people get hung up on, like, well, I want to do a LinkedIn post, but I don't really know what to say and do. And I think sometimes you just gotta jump in and do it. And so there's that. So the formula, I don't know. There's really a formula. I'm not a very I'm more of a fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy. I'm not really systematic or anything like that. I guess I just try to, as best I can, try to go into any networking event or relationshiping event or scenario with the idea of how can I help somebody? How can I give back? So I think the problem, I think, if there's a problem with networking, so many people go into it with, what's in it for me? Well, who can get me a job? Who can get me a lead? Who can get me a sales lead? I mean, me. And we're all human. We're all gonna, if you're in transition and transformation, looking for a job, I mean, it's only natural that you're kind of thinking about you. But as much as you can, I try to go into it as, I'm going to find somebody there at this event tonight who needs me somehow. How can I help them? How can I be very intentional about trying to find somebody that I can help? Maybe I can get them connected to somebody that's going to help them land a job. Maybe I can recommend a book. Maybe there's something I can, a podcast. Maybe there's someone who's out there who's looking for something that I can help them with. And so I try to lead with that. But I also try to, in terms of kind of process after I leave an event, I'm not really big into business cards. They don't do much for me. I mean, you go to an event, you're going to collect some here or there, but I almost have a game I play with myself, and I try to remember names and details about people as best I can. And then immediately when I leave, I'll go to LinkedIn, and instead of sending the obligatory just canned LinkedIn, like, hey, connect with me, I'll send a personalized invite, and make it personal, and go back to a conversation, something that we had, a conversation that at that event, that evening, that night, and then try to do something to move the relationship forward. Like, hey, we talked about, this, and this, or I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Maybe we can get together for coffee next week, or what have you, and try to find some way to move it forward. But I also personally, I think that's important.
Mm.
So how important is knowing your story in networking, your own personal story?
Ooh, how important? Knowing my own personal story, I think.
Yeah.
Boy, this is a great question. I've never really thought about that, but I think you can make even more of an impact when you really understand your own story. I mean, when I think about my story, if I were to go out and I'm at an event, I'm meeting people for the first time, I think about my story. I mean, I've got this chapter, this relationshiping chapter of my background and my story, and it's fun to tell that story. But I've also got, I've gone through job loss, I've gone through layoffs, and I've gone through the job search process, several times over the course of my career, and those are rough times. But I think understanding and being comfortable enough with those situations to share those the high times and the low times with others, I think makes for a better story. I'll just put it that way. Not to be kind of cheesy, but it makes for a better story. And when you know your story really well, and you're comfortable with your story, and you're able to share your story and articulate your story to others, I think it's pretty impactful. I think people really resonate. I think it resonates with people.
Yeah, and it makes it easier for them to show empathy when you're able to articulate your story. But
Good point.
how do you handle? Huh?
No, I'm saying that's a really good point. The question you raised. I was sorry to cut you off.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. So one of the concepts that we talk about here on the D.O.P.E experience is the concept of vulnerability, right? Do you think vulnerability or how do you think vulnerability is in that context of networking and or relationshiping?
Huge.
Yeah.
I think it makes you more genuine. Mm-hmm. I think, when you are able to be vulnerable and be exposed to a certain extent and be real with people, like, hey, I don't have it all together. I don't have all the answers. This is what worked for me. This is where I've stubbed my toe along the way a couple times. I think just being more real and being vulnerable, I think just makes it, I think that it kind of ties back to kind of trust, which is the foundation of really most relationships is trust. And so if you first meet someone and you're able to be vulnerable and open up, I think the trust meter is going to go up, and I think that's just going to kick off hopefully what's going to be a really good relationship, friendship, business relationship. Yeah, for some people it turns into a marriage. You never know, right? You never know where things are going to go, but yeah, trust is the foundation of really all relationships.
Yeah. So I like your term relationshiping. I remember when I first got into insurance is the first thing I got into after I retired from football. And we have to do a ton of networking. We have to face business with mortgage loan officers and realtors. And my district manager used to tell me, well, you have to treat it like dating when you talk to these realtors, and they're not going to send you any leads or work with you the first time you meet them. And I always expected, like, I mean, I'm Romby. I'm from Oklahoma. You should send me leads right away, right? And he was like, no, you got to treat it like dating. When you met your wife, did y'all kiss on the first date? Blah, 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 blah. You know how they carry on. Right. I was quick to cut people off if I felt like they were flaky. So how do you handle and manage people that are flaky when you're new to networking and new to the networking environment? How do you handle flaky people or people you feel like is flaky?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I think that for the most part, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, right? There's a concept I learned years ago about having, belief in people and trying to, and as best you can, kind of believing that everybody's trying to go into relationships with the best intentions, but you realize, some unfortunately, some sooner than quicker than others, that people are in it for their own personal game, for the wrong reasons. And so when that happens, I do what I need to do to kind of shut things down. I mean, we've only got so many hours in a day. We've only got so many days in a week, and our time is precious. And it took me a while to realize and really understand how precious my time is. By nature, I'm a people person. I'm not a people person, people pleaser. Well, I'm a people person too, but but I'm a people pleaser, right? And so I have a hard time saying no to people, and so it's been something over the years I've had to work at, and it's not always easy for me. But I've realized that, man, time is precious, and if I get an inkling or a feeling that someone is going to abuse my time or going to waste my time, or there's not going to be anything fruitful that comes from that relationship, then I'll make efforts to shut it down. Now, what does that look like? I don't necessarily go back and be like, hey, I'm shutting you down. I'll just kind of start. I'll just pull back. I'll pull back, and eventually people will get the joke, and I'll divert my time and attention other places.
I like that. I'm the total opposite, because I wear my heart. I mean, I've gotten better, but I wear my heart on my sleeve. And if I feel like I have a problem with you and you continue to try to talk to, I'm going to let you know, because I'm that guy, vice versa. If you don't want to deal with me, let me know.
Yeah.
So, and it's no hard feelings. It's just, okay, I get it. But I'm not going, like the term I always heard, I'm not going to piss on somebody's leg and tell them it's raining. Like I'm going to let them know right then and there. Like, and I know that's wrong, and I have to get better at that. And like you said, kind of just ease back. And I know there's a fine line. There's a way of doing it. I'm still trying to, just be honest, I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, I honestly, I wish I had a little bit more of that in me, because I wish there are sometimes where I wish I could just, really be like, hey, this is not working for either one of us. So why don't we just call it like it is and be done with this? But I didn't have some interesting conversations with some people, just cutting them off like, hey, look, I understand this relationship is not working anymore. Mm-hmm. This business relationship not working anymore. And it went completely south to where I had to report it to his boss and my boss because of it, because of some of the messages he was sending me. Mm-hmm. And it got pretty ugly. So
going my way, you might hurt some feelings. Just so that. So when it comes to networking on LinkedIn, how do you feel about the people that, like, the minute you send or accept their request, they send you a sales pitch?
I'm sorry I did that to you, Seth. My apologies.
What's that?
I apologize doing that to Seth when I first met him.
So here's the deal. This is like I realize that we all have jobs that we have to do, right? So I do my job, and I make money doing my job, and salespeople have jobs too, and they make money doing their job, and I respect all that. But it is frustrating. It is annoying, when you have someone that reaches out to you, appears to be an honest, genuine, like, hey, I'd like to be a part of your network, and maybe we can find time to connect. I just want to learn a little bit more about you. And then the moment you accept, within minutes, sometimes within seconds, you get, very long email. It's easy to tell they just copy and paste email back with what they're trying to, and then inviting you to, set up time using their calendar link. And so that's, for me, that's a turn off. I like to get to know someone as a person more before we would kind of dive into, like, okay, what are you selling? Because maybe I'm buying, maybe I'm not buying, but that's just me. That's just a turn off. So
we had talked about this, and I will attest to the fact that Seth's truck is a good studio. That the acoustics are awesome. But no, they legit are. It's a good environment to do a podcast.
I've done several there.
we had tacos. I mean, anytime Seth and I meet, we're always eating. So this time it was tacos, and we talked about, and you asked me the question, what are some of the don'ts or some of the things that I have seen when people are relationshiping with me that I would convey to the masses of don't do this? And Romby brought up a good point of just the immediate, not necessarily bait and switch, but just, you hook them with a connection on LinkedIn and then you sell them. Outside other things that you can think of that have happened to you in relationshiping environments, be it on LinkedIn or in person at events. That you and I go to HR Southwest. I'm sure people walked up to you as they did me. What are some things that you've found that you're like, nah, you really don't need that?
Yeah, I think the unsolicited resume is one that happens a lot. It's one thing for you and I to strike up a conversation at an event, and we're talking, and I find out that you're in transition, you're in search mode, and I say, hey, you know what? Send me a resume. I'd love to take a look, and maybe I've got somebody in my network that I can make an introduction to, or if you're okay with it, maybe I can give you some feedback or whatever. But that's usually after a period of time talking and getting to know somebody, right? When you haven't even asked for it, and you walk away from the conversation, and all of a sudden you're just getting hit with, hey, here's my resume. And a lot of times it's not even like, there's really like no even like intro. It's just like, it's an email with like the resume attached, and that's it. And you're like, okay, so I guess I'm now supposed to like blast this out to my network. I mean, like I don't like. So the unsolicited resume I think is one that's kind of a pet peeve. Again, I'm all for helping and doing what I can to connect the dots. And if there's someone in my network or that I know that I think can help, man, I'm all about that all day long. I love making introductions to people. I'm kind of like being a professional matchmaker, but the unsolicited resume is a tough one for me.
So I'll go ahead, Javier. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's a really good question, Sal. I remembered on my transformation out of professional football was when I got my crash course in relationshiping and networking, and I just remember how, to your point earlier, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't feel it was productive. I didn't feel I could be productive at it. I kind of shied away from it. I was a guy who, would see if there was someone there who I knew, I would kind of, conversate with them, try to keep that conversation going. I wasn't very outgoing. It's just a lot of things that I had to learn, that I had to, first of all, realize and then learn how to address it and then actually do it. So, yeah, I was just interested in if you have anything that you're willing to share about what was your biggest hurdle or your biggest light bulb moment, if you will, about how to raise your relationshiping game to the next level. I totally understand that everybody's on different places, on different levels, but looking back at your own experiences from where you were to where you are now, is there a major thing that you kind of had to optimize for yourself, or you just kind of been?
I think one thing that a lot of good questions. I was never. I don't know how or when I made the transformation. I mean, I just think back to like my younger years. I was not very comfortable, like public speaking or speaking, to large groups or anything like that. It terrified me. The thought of standing up in front of a room and giving a presentation or anything like that just terrified me. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know how I don't know when or how I overcame that, but like now I love it. I mean, I still get I get anxious, but it's like a good anxious. It's like a feel before you step on the field before a game anxious. Like you're not scared, but you're amped up, And I don't know how, I don't know what it was. I mean, I didn't go to a Toastmasters class or anything like that. I just, over time, I just kind of, I think now that I'm talking about it, I think maybe what it was is once you get comfortable, once you realize and you get comfortable with who you are and your story and the content, and you kind of come into your own, like, okay, I know what I'm doing as an HR professional. I don't really question that. I know who I am. I know what I'm about. Once you're comfortable with yourself, maybe that's when you are open to that. So there's I would say one thing, but the other thing too is, with regards to relationshiping, is you got to be open. You got to be open, and what I mean by that is, So I've always said, I've kind of said this throughout, with my videos, my podcasts, the thing about networking and relationshiping is it can happen anytime, anywhere, any place. It can happen at an event. It can happen standing in line at the grocery store. It can happen. I told you guys, I think I mentioned before, I met a great HR connection, at the Nordstrom dressing room when we first moved to Dallas. My wife was trying on a dress. His wife was trying on a dress. We struck up a conversation because we were both University of Texas graduates, and both turned out to be in HR, and we made a connection. So part of it is being open to that, being open to the conversation. And some of that's mindset. When you go into a networking event, if you're still stuck on that project at work, your mind's focused on work, or your mind's focused on what's going on with the kids at home, and your phone's going off and all those things, you can have a really hard time kind of being focused on and appearing. There's a psychology to it, right? When you go to a networking event, you can appear closed or you can appear open. If you're closed, not a lot of people are going to come up and talk to you, or they're not going to want to talk to you. But if you're open, and you just got to be kind of listening for the opportunities and kind of waiting for those opportunities. And I think that, there's just a mindset. I'm guilty of this. I will tell you though, when I'm on a plane, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, that's one of the best times to get to know people," because you're in a confined space. I'm pretty selfish when I get on a plane. If I'm by myself, I'm telling you, I'm putting my AirPods in and I'm listening, and I just don't like talking on the plane. I don't know why, but I don't. And so that's kind of my one area where I'm like, no, this is my time. I'm gonna sleep. I'm gonna listen to music. Or I'm gonna listen to audiobook or something like that. That's my time. But outside of that, I usually try to keep a pretty open mind in terms of realizing that my next relationship could come from anywhere.
Mm.
That's a good point, Seth. Because the person who wants to network a relationship has to read the audience. So just as you said, if you're on a plane and you don't want to be talked to, that happens to, I think, all of us who get on a plane. Sometimes we don't want to talk, but you got that person who wants to. So I think it's critical.
Where are you from? Where are you going? What are you going to do? Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Right. So it's important to read the audience for anyone out there relationship. I think that's a good point too. We talk about amongst us what's happening with our landscape, social unrest, social injustice, COVID, all these different things have impacted the way we relationship. No longer can we shake hands, at least for now, or you can, but it's just it's such a different world, so to speak. So what are your thoughts in terms of how do people assimilate themselves or acclimate themselves to this new environment of networking and relationshiping during the times of COVID, during things like this where we're not really face to face? How best do you approach that? Because the dynamics are way different.
Yeah, totally different. I mean, I miss being in person, face to face. So when that time comes and we're able to get back to that safely, it'll be great. But it is going to be really interesting. I mean, you think about this not only from a networking perspective, but think about from an interviewing perspective as well, right? So imagine, you're a candidate and you're going in for an in-person interview. Do you extend your hand to shake? Do you not? Are you going to be viewed one way? Like, man, I cannot believe that guy came in for an interview and just stuck out his hand. Like, who would do that? Like, so now all of a sudden as a candidate, you're overthinking all this stuff. Like, should I shake? Should I not shake? If I don't, is that rude? And so I feel like it's almost like this whole new social etiquette that's going to be written unofficially about, like I've been in some situations recently, and I've just simply asked people like, hey, are you comfortable with a handshake? And if they say yes, I say, okay, great, then I shake hands. But I ask first. I don't just simply, go to it. I ask. And so, I just, when you're imagine being in a small conference room in an interview, are you wearing a mask? Are you not wearing a mask? They're going to be kind of weird if they can't see your face. And I mean, again, there's just all these new dynamics that are I don't know. It's an interesting world now, and I think there's going to be this new social etiquette that's written that's going to be fascinating. But for now, this works. I love the technology that we have. I love being able to see you guys and talking to you guys like this. And I'm just looking forward to that time when we can do it all together in person safely again. I
think I would be allergic to your office anyway. But
I mean, my mouse pad. It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Sal brought up a good point with the COVID situation, and Sal and I talked about this earlier this week. What advice would you give somebody that's trying to network and possibly find a new job while they're working? They try to be more intentional on finding other opportunities, but do it in a tasteful way.
Yeah. I would think it would be even tougher. I think, if I'm just trying to put myself in that situation, if I'm working and I'm trying to look for a new opportunity while I'm still working, now that you don't have in-person events happen, so you don't have after hours, network events. It's going to be more virtual happy hours and things like that. It's going to be tough. I'd say be very selective. I think it would be easy for someone to get overwhelmed by spending a lot of time and burning a lot of calories on things that don't really bear much fruit. So I'd say be very selective, about the virtual events that you're attending, and as much as you can beforehand, try to know who's going to be there. It's always good. I love most of the things now. We'll show you an RSVP list so you know who's going to be there, who's not going to be there, how many people are going to be there. I mean, it's very different getting them ready to go to a networking event that's got 4 other people as opposed to 54 other people. I'd say be very intentional and very selective.
Yeah, preparation is key in networking, and I know I realized that when I was done with football, going to networking events, and like you said, even the networking events when you're showing up there physically, a lot of times you saw the RSVP list.
Mm-hmm.
And you can pretty much pick out who you want to talk to, even though that might not seem as organic as like a natural way of meeting somebody. But I believe, and Javier and I know, like in football is all about preparation and being prepared, knowing your story, being as authentic, being vulnerable as you can when you get out there and meet people. Because most of the time you can read somebody, like you said earlier, you can read if they're kind of just here, you're transactional, you just a number to them, or if it's something that's genuine.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think the other thing too, when you're able to see like an RSVP list and you see who's there, it may be someone that you already know, but then if I see a name that looks familiar and I don't know them, my immediate thought is like a mutual connection. Who do I know that I know is connected to them? And so if I say, I kind of tell myself like, hey, if I get a chance to meet this person, I know that I've got something to talk about because we have a mutual connection in this person.
Mm-hmm.
So I always try to find out what's the common ground that I have with them. Because then I don't like, it's not like a surgical strike where I'm like, okay, I got to hit these 5 people because I see them, they're on my list. I'm like, well, hey, if I run into them, fantastic. I know I've got some common ground. If I don't, no sweat. I'm not going to worry about it. So.
Yeah. And one thing with football, with me, that I didn't do when I first got done, I didn't use I played in the NFL or CFL thing. I didn't tell anybody. And it took my district manager and somebody that worked in his office like, no, you need to use that. So is that like good or bad, or is there a tasteful way of doing it?
I think there's an in between, because I get what you're saying. I think sometimes guys like you in your position, some people would overuse that or maybe use that inappropriately for their advantage, because they think, well, just because I play in the NFL, I feel like I can do this, this, and this. And so I think there's a humility there that is very attractive to people. I think that that's a great approach. I mean, I wouldn't hide it, and so it may come up. I think there is a way to do it appropriately, but I think sometimes people just go out loud, like, and it's kind of like an entitlement thing. Like, hey, because I did this, then I should get this, and this. And I think that is not the right way to do it. But
they made me switch my card, so this was my card used to look like. It was an actual trading card that was a business card.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So like it's not me. Mm-hmm. So I didn't like it, but like I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a tasteful way of doing it, because it is a great conversational starter. It opens up. I mean, any and everybody in the state of Texas want to talk about football anyway.
Absolutely.
That's half the battle, right? With relationshiping is just how do you break the ice?
Yeah. It's a good idea.
The cliche, what do you do? That definitely, as Javier and Romby, I would leverage it, but like you said, tactfully. I usually have a different problem. I have to proactively tell them that I didn't play in the NFL ahead of the conversation, just to prevent them from asking. So
that's right. Despite what you may think.
Right. I can see how they may think that, so I usually tell them beforehand, especially when I'm standing next to Javier and Romby.
I mean, sometimes people come up to me and they're like, "Hey, you kind of look like a famous movie star, or model," and I'm like, "No, really, I'm not. No, I mean,
it's hard work looking that good, Seth. It's hard work.
You guys got people problems."
Yeah.
This topic of relationshiping, obviously, it is an appropriate thing to really discuss, especially given the nature of COVID and the dynamics of having to be able to do that. We brought up a lot of good things of strength and vulnerability, the ability or the need to be vulnerable so that we can be authentic. And I think it also puts the other people at ease so that they are also vulnerable, and that conversation goes well. Build relationships before the ask. People often go right to the ask before really developing a relationship, and I think that's key for folks to understand. And then being empathetic. Romby, Javier, and I talk about this all the time. That we all think, and Seth, you probably agree, the society in general has kind of devolved into the lack of empathy, and it's degenerated into a point where it's either one side or the other, and there's a lack of empathy. And I think in relationships in general, it's important to understand both sides and come to a common ground, if you will. So we appreciate you coming on the show. This has always been a pleasure hanging out with you. We wish it was live. If people want to reach out to you and contact you, what's a good way to contact you?
LinkedIn's going to be the best way to find me. Yeah, that's where I'm the most active. So they can just Seth McColley on LinkedIn, and that's. I'm pretty open, despite everything I said. I'm a pretty open connector. So there's not a lot of people that I won't accept LinkedIn invites. Just my only ask is that you just don't turn around and try to sell me something right off the bat.
We'll post your cell phone too while we're at it, so don't worry about that. What?
No unsolicited.
I gave you my social security number, right? I mean,
yeah, I got that.
You need my mother's maiden name or anything? Okay.
Yes, got it. Any events or projects you'd like to promote?
Right now, no. There's really no new projects that I can think of at the moment.
What's on the horizon for your show?
I took my show's on kind of a hiatus. Probably, I guess, in February. I took a break from the show. I've got a couple of episodes that are recorded that I've not pushed out, and then this little global pandemic hit, and work got, as it should, got my full attention, and so, I need to find the appropriate time to get things back in gear. I've got, in the last several months, I've made some incredible new relationships that have been made and been built, and some that I think will make for some really, really great podcast episodes. So I'm looking forward to getting things cranked back up again here soon.
There's some great content you have. Great.
That's more the video thing. I kind of like because I use Zoom for my for the ones I don't do in my truck. I use Zoom, but I do like the video thing. So I might shift and do a little bit, kind of like what you guys are doing with the video podcast.
There you go. Yeah. Always inspiring. We've got some rapid fire questions for you. So right off the cuff. All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
What's one bucket list city?
One bucket list city.
Outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma. What's the other one?
Oh, dang it. I'd say maybe like Dublin, like Ireland. I think Ireland would be really cool to check out. I'd say Dublin, Ireland.
Excellent. Just on a side note, the 3rd is our 15th wedding anniversary. We were supposed to be in Dublin, so really? that resonates with me. What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
Oklahoma barbecue.
There is some good barbecue in Oklahoma. The best piece of advice I ever received. Boy, I'm drawing a blank. I'll go back to early in my HR career. I remember somebody telling me 2 important things that you need to remember when it comes to HR. Don't mess with people's pay and don't mess with people's benefits. So that was kind of like, don't monkey around with those, with benefits, with what people are getting paid and what their benefits are. So I was like, all right.
Favorite movie or book, or why?
Favorite movie, The Godfather, hands down. Love The Godfather.
What's your favorite line in that movie?
Oof.
Monday, Tuesday.
Boy, there are so many great lines.
Put you on the spot, Seth.
I know. Boy, I'm drawing a blank. There's a scene that I'm thinking of, and this actually, this might be from Godfather 2, not 1, where the senator and Michael Corleone are in his office. It's a great. I watched that clip on YouTube a lot just because it's such a great scene, and the senator is basically, blackmailing him and putting him in an awkward position, and Michael Corleone says, Senator, you can have my answer now. The answer is no. And instead of you trying to get money from me, I'm going to make you pay for all these things, the gaming licenses and can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's a very powerful scene.
Those are powerful series of movies.
Yeah, except for number 3. 3 was kind of.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
What
is your biggest pet peeve?
Biggest pet peeve? What's my biggest pet peeve?
Yep.
Man, when people sing the wrong words to songs that I know the right words to, that drives me nuts. I mean, I'm
songs that
where did you get that? No, that's not what it says. No. That's one of my biggest pet peeves.
My biggest pet peeve is when Javi starts rapping and it's just the wrong words. He does that all the time off the top of his head. Top of the dome, he just doesn't get the words right.
That's categorically incorrect. I always was right, especially off the top of the dome.
He's really good at it, by the way. Last question. Describe yourself as a teenager in 3 words.
Oh. Aimless, skinny, and fun.
Aimless, skinny, and fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You've evolved quite a bit then.
Yeah. I don't yeah. I'm a different person now than I was then.
So you were the fun skinny kid.
I was a fun, and I had hair. I had blonde hair. That's right.
Excellent. Javi, what do you got?
Awesome. Yeah. Hey, we really appreciate you coming on to our show, Seth. And
this is great. Thanks, guys.
Dropping some jewels of knowledge and sharing your wealth of expertise in the many fields and talking to us about the art and science of relationshiping and how it's a necessary component of transformation. So on the D.O.P.E experience, developing one's perspective every day, we take some time to give out some recommendations, especially with what we're seeing in the world today. And we all just need to be more supportive with each other, have a little bit more empathy with ourselves and with others, and just do our best to help each other and do it out of caring. So here on the D.O.P.E experience, sharing is caring. So we take this time to share something profound by way of a book or a quote or a movie that you feel someone can benefit from if they choose to tap into it. So Romby, can you set us off today as our first D.O.P.E recommendation?
Yep. I'm gonna go with a book. Just Listen. I feel it's people don't listen nowadays. There's a quote by Brene Brown that I heard before is certainty blots out curiosity. So I feel like a lot of people go into these situations, these conversations, and they're certain they're stuck in their position and they're not curious and want to listen or even ask questions about why that person feels the way they feel. It's definitely needed in networking. So that's why I'm gonna go with Just Listen.
All right.
Or yes. What about you, Javier?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, that's a good pick. My pick, I'm gonna go with Judith Glazer, and she writes a book called Conversational Intelligence. And it's funny, you picking these books, we're talking about this topic and how being able to communicate your thoughts and ideas and being able to do it in an environment with other people to develop some kind of a relationship. I think that involves a lot of different skill sets and a lot of different abilities. And I really like how Ms. Glazer goes in on what it takes to listen as well as communicate with a high level of intelligence. So Conversational Intelligence by Judith Glazer. Get the audiobook. What you got for us, Seth?
Let's see. I've got something that Seth said earlier, and it was about the story of him going in and just basically stopping from Dallas to Frisco. He just kind of stopped and did it. We all know Fanny Dunnigan. We were great. We were lucky enough to be on her show a couple weeks ago, and Fanny and I and Seth are good friends as well. And she always says, "Do it scared. Just kind of jump in there." And one thing, it just is do one thing every day that scares you. And I think that's so appropriate and kind of defines what Seth did that one day. He stopped the truck. He just did it and just jumped right in there. So do one thing every day that scares you. I think that's a good mantra. So what do you have for us, Seth? Some words of wisdom from you.
I've got two. Can I have two?
Sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I've got two. So I've got one. One is a quote, and it's something I heard back in college, and it always stuck with me. That would be at the University of Texas, by the way. It always stuck with me, which was smooth sea never yielded a skilled sailor. And so that has been attributed to several people, but it always stuck with me because I just remember, like, unless you go through the trials, the tribulations, and the rough times, you're really not going to be a proficient sailor or proficient in life. So there's the quote. And then the other thing I throw out to the group, I think you guys, a lot of people are familiar with. I got turned on to this a couple months ago, but Emmanuel Acho, who was a former player for the University of Texas, and then he went to ESPN, did some things, but he has really started up some great conversations. He has got a YouTube series that he's created called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, and he's bringing all kinds of guests. I think most recently he had Roger Goodell, which was pretty interesting. And he's just a lot of much needed conversation that he's out there just leading the charge. And so it's pretty good stuff there. I'd recommend anyone tune in, check it out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seth, we very much appreciate your time, buddy. It's always good to see you. Hopefully sooner than later, we can all get together, break bread over some Texas barbecue.
That'll be awesome.
Or tacos or sushi or whatever you'd like. But thanks again for coming. We appreciate everyone joining us today. Join us next time for a new episode of the Dope Experience. I'm Sal Vergara with Mr. Romby Bryant and Javiar Collins. We'll see you next time. Stay dope. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Dope Experience. Our hope is that you're left with a new perspective to formulate a blueprint of growth and transformation. Make sure you subscribe to us on Spotify or wherever you consume podcasts. Stay dope.